The rain hammered down, like bullets against the wooden planks of the general store's porch, turning the dusty streets of Redemption Creek into rivers of mud. Eleanor Hartley pressed herself against the wall, her threadbare shawl doing nothing to stop the cold from seeping into her bones. 3 days. 3 days since she'd eaten more than stale bread crusts scavenged from behind the bakery. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her pocket, touching the only thing of value she had left, her wedding ring. James had placed it on her finger 5 years ago, back when hope still lived in her chest, before the fever took him, before the bank took their farm, before the whole town decided a widow with no family was something to be pitied at best, propositioned at worst. Before we continue, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support truly motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. I'd also love to know, where are you listening to this story from? At home? During a commute? Please, let us know in the comments. Looking to sell that ring, Mrs. Hartley? Eleanor's head snapped up. Old Mr. Peterson stood in the doorway of his store, his expression a mixture of pity and calculation that made her stomach turn. "I'm looking for work, Mr. Peterson. Anything honest." He scratched his chin, eyes traveling down her rain-soaked dress in a way that made her skin crawl. "Well now, there might be something you can do for me. Come inside where it's warm, and we can discuss terms." Eleanor's throat tightened. She knew what kind of terms men like Peterson offered women like her. She'd heard the whispers about Sarah Jenkins, about how she'd gone into his back room to discuss employment and come out with bruises hidden beneath her collar. "Thank you, but no." Eleanor turned away, stepping off the porch into the rain. Better to drown in the storm than in shame. "Your funeral, Mrs. Hartley, literally." Peterson's laugh followed her down the muddy street. The wind picked up, nearly knocking her off her feet. Through the sheets of rain, she could barely see 5 feet ahead. Her boots sank into the mud with every step, and she had no idea where she was going. Away. Just away. A strong hand caught her arm. Eleanor screamed, wrenching backward, but the grip held firm, not bruising, but unyielding. "Easy now." The voice was deep, rough as gravel, but there was something in it that made her stop struggling. "You're going to break your neck out here." Lightning flashed, illuminating the man before her. Tall. God, he was tall, with shoulders broad enough to block the wind. Water streamed from the brim of his black hat, and even in the storm's chaos, his dark eyes held steady on her face with an intensity that should have frightened her, but somehow didn't. "Let me go," she said, but her voice came out weak. "I will, soon as we're out of this storm." He nodded toward a building she could barely make out through the rain. "My ranch office, 5 steps away." "I don't need." You're shaking so hard you can't finish a sentence. "Pride won't keep you alive, ma'am." Before she could protest, he'd already guided her forward, his body breaking the worst of the wind. The office door swung open, and warmth rushed out to meet them. He ushered her inside, then closed the door against the howling storm. Eleanor stood dripping on the wooden floor, suddenly aware of how she must look. Hair plastered to her face, dress clinging to her too thin frame, mud coating her worn boots. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shivering. The man moved to the fireplace, stirring the coals to life and adding fresh wood. Flames leaped up, casting dancing shadows across the room. It was spare, but clean. A desk stacked with ledgers, chairs that looked sturdy, walls lined with maps and records. "Sit," he pointed to a chair near the fire. Eleanor didn't move. "I should go." He turned to face her fully, and she got her first real look at him. 30, maybe 32. Strong jaw shadowed with stubble, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, hands that looked like they'd spent a lifetime working rope and leather. There was something almost severe about his features, but his eyes held something unexpected, something careful. "Where exactly are you planning to go?" he asked. "Back to Peterson's store?" Her face must have given her away, because his jaw tightened. "Thought so. Sit down, Mrs. Hartley. Please. You know who I am. Everyone knows who you are. The widow who lost everything. The woman too proud to accept charity." He pulled a blanket from a chest and held it out. "I'm Clayton Pierce. I own the Three Rivers Ranch, 5 miles north." Eleanor had heard of him. Clayton Pierce, the rancher who'd built an empire from nothing, who treated his ranch hands fairly and paid his debts, who kept to himself and let others do the same. She took the blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. The warmth was almost painful after so much cold. Clayton moved to a cabinet and pulled out a tin. "When did you last eat?" "That's not your concern. Humor me." He set the tin on the desk, revealing hardtack and dried beef. Eleanor's stomach betrayed her, growling so loudly they both heard it. Shame burned her cheeks. She reached into her pocket, pulling out her ring. "I can pay." Clayton's eyes dropped to the gold band, then back to her face. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, but something fiercer. "Gold isn't what we need here," he said quietly. "You are." Eleanor blinked. "I don't understand." "My housekeeper quit last month. Couldn't take the isolation," she said. "Took off for Denver." He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "I need someone who can cook, clean, and isn't afraid of hard work. Room and board included, plus wages. Enough to save up for a fresh start, if that's what you want." It was too perfect, too convenient. Eleanor had learned that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Though I'll tell you plain, I'm not an easy man to work for. I expect meals on time, the house kept proper, and I don't tolerate excuses." He paused. "But I don't tolerate any man treating a woman with anything less than respect, either. You work for me, you're under my protection. Anyone gives you trouble, they answer to me." "Why would you do this? You don't know me." "Because I know what it's like to be backed into a corner with no way out." His voice had gone rough around the edges. "And because I saw you walk away from Peterson when you could have taken the easy path? That tells me what kind of person you are." Eleanor looked at the fire, then at the food, then back at Clayton Pierce. Every instinct screamed that accepting help from a stranger was dangerous. But what choice did she have? Starve with dignity, or take a chance on survival? "If I do this," she said slowly, "it's as your employee, nothing more." "Agreed. And if you try anything at all, I'll shoot you." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Fair enough, though you'll need a gun first." "We'll work on that." She studied him for a long moment, searching for any sign of deception. But all she saw was a tired man offering a practical solution to a practical problem. "Then I accept, Mr. Pierce." "Clayton." He pushed off from the desk and extended his hand. "We'll head out to the ranch once the storm clears. Eat something. You're going to need your strength. Eleanor took his hand. His grip was warm, calloused, steady. And for the first time in months, she felt something other than desperation. She felt possibility. The storm broke just before dawn, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. Eleanor had fallen asleep in the chair by the fire, exhaustion finally overtaking caution. When she woke, Clayton was already moving around the office, checking maps and making notes. "Ready?" he asked when he noticed her stirring. She nodded, still not quite believing this was happening. The ride to Three Rivers Ranch took 2 hours on horseback. Clayton had provided her with a gentle mare and rode beside her on a massive black stallion, pointing out landmarks and boundaries. The land was beautiful. Rolling hills dotted with cattle, creeks cutting silver paths through green meadows, mountains rising purple in the distance. The ranch house itself was larger than Eleanor expected. 2 stories, solid timber construction, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Barns and outbuildings clustered nearby, and she could see ranch hands already at work in the distance. "This is yours?" she breathed. "Built it myself, mostly, with help from the men." Clayton dismounted, then came to help her down. His hands spanned her waist easily, lowering her to the ground with a gentleness that surprised her. Inside, the house was clean, but clearly lacked a woman's touch. Functional furniture, bare walls, dishes stacked haphazardly in the kitchen. Eleanor's fingers itched to organize it all. "Your room's upstairs," Clayton said, leading the way. "Second door on the right. Mine's at the end of the hall. There's a lock on your door if you want it." The room was simple but clean. A bed, a dresser, a washstand, a window overlooking the valley. Eleanor set down her meager bundle of belongings and turned to find Clayton watching her from the doorway. "Thank you," she said, "truly. Don't thank me yet. You haven't tasted my cooking." That almost smile again. "Get settled. Supper's at 6. I'll introduce you to the hands tomorrow." He was turning to go when Eleanor spoke again. "Clayton, why did you really do this?" He paused, one hand on the doorframe. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, "Because 5 years ago, I was the one standing in the rain with nothing. Someone gave me a chance. Figure it's time I passed that along." Before she could respond, he was gone. The first week passed in a blur of work. Eleanor threw herself into her duties with fierce determination, waking before dawn to start breakfast, spending her days scrubbing floors and washing clothes, and learning the rhythms of ranch life. Clayton kept his distance, treating her with careful courtesy, never lingering too long in a room or standing too close. It should have been a relief. Instead, it left her oddly unsettled. She found herself watching him when he didn't know, the way he moved with quiet confidence, the gentle patience he showed with the horses, the respect he commanded from his men without ever raising his voice. He was nothing like James, who'd been soft-spoken and gentle. Clayton was all hard edges and barely contained intensity. But there was something underneath that hardness, something carefully guarded. On the 8th day, she found out why. Eleanor had woken before dawn as usual, but when she came downstairs, she found Clayton already awake, standing by the window in the pre-dawn darkness. He didn't hear her approach, lost in whatever thoughts held him. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. He startled, turning. In the dim light, she saw something raw in his face before he shuttered it away. "Old habits. I'll get out of your way." "You don't have to." Eleanor moved to the stove, starting the fire. I don't mind the company. Clayton hesitated, then leaned against the counter, watching her work. The silence between them felt different than before. Less careful, more comfortable. How long have you been alone? Eleanor asked, measuring coffee grounds. 3 years, since my wife died. Eleanor's hand stilled. I'm sorry. Fever took her. Same one that probably took your husband. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the counter. I was out on a cattle drive. By the time I got back, she was already buried. Clayton, I told her I'd only be gone 2 weeks. I promised. Now she heard it, the pain underneath, sharp as broken glass. She died alone because I wasn't there. Eleanor turned to face him fully. It wasn't your fault. Knowing that doesn't make it hurt less. He met her eyes. I made a promise to myself after. No more attachments. No more promises I might not be able to keep. Easier that way. Easier, Eleanor repeated, but lonelier. Yes. The single word held volumes. She understood then why he'd hired her, why he kept his distance, why his kindness came wrapped in careful formality. He was protecting himself the only way he knew how. I won't push, Eleanor said quietly, but I won't pretend there's nothing here either. This connection between us, I feel it. I think you do too. Clayton's jaw worked. Eleanor, you don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that I see you, the real you, underneath all that armor. She turned back to the stove. Now go wash up. Breakfast will be ready soon. She heard him leave, his footsteps heavy on the stairs, and she wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life or the bravest move. 3 days later, everything changed. Eleanor was in the barn, gathering eggs from the chicken coop, when she heard shouting from the house. She ran toward the sound, her heart hammering. Clayton stood on the porch, facing 3 men on horseback. She recognized the one in the middle immediately. Charles Whitmore, the banker who'd foreclosed on her farm. Bile rose in her throat. I'll ask one more time, Pierce, Whitmore was saying. Where is she? Who? Clayton's voice was dangerously calm. Eleanor Hartley. Her husband owed me money when he died. Debt passes to the widow. Whitmore's smile was all teeth. I'm here to collect. That's not how the law works, Whitmore. It's how my law works. Now bring her out or I'll come in and get her. Eleanor's hands fisted in her skirt. She should have known. Should have realized that running wouldn't be enough. Men like Whitmore always collected their debts, one way or another. The lady isn't going anywhere, Clayton said. Lady? Whitmore laughed. She's property, Pierce, and I own her contract. Unless you want to buy it from me, say $500? It was an impossible sum. Eleanor knew it. Whitmore knew it. It was designed to be insurmountable. Clayton's silence stretched. Eleanor felt her heart breaking. Of course he wouldn't pay. Why would he? She was just his housekeeper. He owed her nothing. Get off my land, Whitmore. Not without what's mine. She's not yours. She never was. Clayton's hand moved to the gun at his hip. But if you want to push this, I'm willing to settle it right here. The air went electric. Whitmore's companions shifted nervously, hands moving toward their own weapons. Eleanor couldn't let this happen. Couldn't let Clayton risk his life for her. She stepped out from behind the barn, raising her voice. I'm here. Every head turned. Clayton's face went tight with something that looked like fury, but she saw the fear underneath. Eleanor, get back. No. She walked toward them, chin high despite her trembling legs. Mr. Whitmore, I'll come with you. Just leave Mr. Pierce alone. Eleanor, Clayton's voice cracked like a whip. Don't. Smart girl, Whitmore said, dismounting. See, Pierce, this is why women shouldn't make decisions. They understand their place. He reached for Eleanor's arm. Clayton moved faster than she'd ever seen anyone move. One moment, he was on the porch. The next, he had Whitmore by the collar, slamming him against a post, hard enough to rattle teeth. Touch her, Clayton snarled, and I'll break every bone in your hand. Then I'll start on the rest of you. You can't. I can. This is my land. You're threatening my employee, and I've got 15 witnesses in those fields who'll swear you drew first. He shoved Whitmore toward his horse. Now get the hell off my property before I forget I'm trying to be civilized. Whitmore stumbled, face purple with rage. This isn't over, Pierce. I'll have the sheriff. The sheriff's my cousin. You want to try your luck with him? Be my guest. Clayton's smile was all danger. Or you can accept that you lost this round and move on. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, Whitmore spat in the dirt and mounted his horse. You'll regret this, he said. I doubt it. They watched the three men ride away, dust rising in their wake. Eleanor's legs finally gave out. She would have collapsed if Clayton hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest. Easy. I've got you. His arms came around her, solid and warm. You're safe. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. Shh. We'll figure it out. He drew back just enough to look at her face, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. But don't you ever try to sacrifice yourself like that again. You hear me? He would have killed you. Better that than watching you walk away with him. The intensity in his eyes stole her breath. I told you, you're under my protection. I meant it. Why? Eleanor's voice broke. Why do you care so much? Clayton's thumb brushed her cheekbone, wiping away a tear she hadn't known she'd shed. Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks, I stopped being able to imagine this house without you in it. Because you look at me like I'm a person, not just a paycheck or a problem to solve. Because. He stopped, jaw clenching. Because? Eleanor prompted. Because you melted something in me I thought had frozen solid. His voice had gone rough, and it terrifies me. Eleanor's breath caught. She reached up, covering his hand with hers. I'm terrified too. We're a pair, aren't we? That almost smile, but warmer now. Real. Clayton, there's something I need to tell you. About the debt. It's not legal. James paid it before he died. I have the receipt. Whitmore just kept billing me because he knew I didn't have money for a lawyer. Clayton's expression went dangerous again. You have proof? In my things upstairs. I was afraid to use it because I thought he'd just destroy it. He's not destroying anything. Tomorrow, we're riding to Redemption Creek to see the sheriff. We'll settle this properly. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Tonight, though, you're staying close. I don't trust Whitmore not to try something. I'll be fine in my room. No, the word was absolute. Not with him out there plotting revenge. You'll stay in my bed tonight. Eleanor's eyes went wide. Clayton, I'll take the floor, he clarified quickly. But I'm not leaving you alone. Not after what just happened. She should refuse. Should insist on maintaining propriety. But the truth was, she didn't want to be alone. Didn't want to spend the night jumping at every sound, wondering if Whitmore was coming back. All right, she whispered. Relief flooded his face. Come on, let's get you inside. That night, Eleanor sat on Clayton's bed while he moved around the room, making a pallet on the floor with blankets and a pillow. The intimacy of the situation, being in his private space, watching him prepare for sleep, made her heart race. "This is foolish," she said. "The bed is big enough for both of us." Clayton's hands stilled. "Eleanor, I trust you, and I'm too tired to argue about propriety." She lay back against the pillows, still fully dressed. "Just stay on your side." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he sat on the edge of the bed, pulling off his boots. "If I do anything that makes you uncomfortable, I'll kick you onto the floor," Eleanor finished. "I know." That surprised a real laugh out of him, low and rough but genuine. He stretched out beside her, careful to leave space between them. The room fell quiet. Eleanor listened to his breathing, steady and deep, and felt herself beginning to relax. She hadn't shared a bed with anyone since James died. She'd forgotten what it was like. The warmth of another person, the comfort of not being alone. "Thank you," she said into the darkness. "For today, for everything. You don't need to thank me." "I do, though. You didn't have to stand up to Whitmore. Didn't have to risk yourself for me." "Yes, I did." His voice had gone quiet, almost vulnerable. "Because somewhere along the way, you became important. More than just my housekeeper. More than—" He stopped. Eleanor turned her head, finding him already looking at her in the moonlight streaming through the window. "More than what?" she whispered. "More than I thought I could let anyone be again." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His fingers threaded through hers, warm and strong. "I know it's too soon. I'm breaking my own rules. But I can't pretend anymore, Eleanor. Can't pretend I don't care what happens to you. Can't pretend my heart doesn't beat faster every time you walk into a room." Eleanor's throat tightened. "Clayton, I'm broken. I'm poor. I come with nothing but debt and ghosts." "So am I. So do I." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Maybe we're meant to be broken together. Maybe that's enough. What if we fail? What if we hurt each other? Then we'll fail and hurt together too." He lifted their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I'm willing to risk it if you are." Eleanor felt tears sliding down her temples. "I'm scared." "Me too. But I'm more scared of never trying. Of waking up one day and realizing I let you slip away because I was too much of a coward to take a chance." She turned onto her side, facing him fully. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't die on me. I can't do that again." Clayton's face tightened. "Eleanor, I know you can't control it. I know promises like that are impossible. But I need to hear it anyway." Her voice broke. "I need to hear you say you'll fight to stay alive, that you'll come back to me." He moved closer, cupping her face with his free hand. "I promise, no matter what happens, I'll fight my way back to you. You have my word." That's all I needed. She closed the distance between them, resting her forehead against his. "Now kiss me before I lose my nerve." Clayton didn't need to be told twice. His lips found hers, gentle at first, testing. But when Eleanor sighed and melted into him, the kiss deepened, became something urgent and desperate and sweet all at once. They kissed like people who'd been starving and finally found sustenance. Like two broken pieces, discovering they fit together. After all, when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Clayton pressed his lips to her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "Stay with me," he murmured against her skin. "Not just tonight. Always." Always is a long time. Not long enough. He pulled her closer, tucking her head under his chin. "Sleep, Eleanor. I've got you." And wrapped in his arms, Listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong beneath her ear, Eleanor finally let herself believe in possibility again. Morning came too soon, sunlight streaming through the curtains. Eleanor woke to find herself still wrapped in Clayton's embrace, his breathing deep and even against her hair. She'd forgotten how good this felt. Being held, being safe, being wanted. She shifted, and Clayton's arms tightened reflexively before his eyes opened. "Morning," he rumbled, voice rough with sleep. "Morning." She smiled up at him. "We should probably get up. The hands'll be expecting breakfast soon." "Let them wait." But he released her reluctantly, sitting up and running a hand through his hair. "After breakfast, we ride to town. Get this business with Whitmore settled once and for all." Eleanor nodded, nerves fluttering in her stomach. What if the receipt isn't enough? What if he somehow made it legal? "Then I'll pay the debt myself." Clayton turned to look at her. "Whatever it takes, Eleanor. You're not going back to him." "I can't let you." "You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to." He leaned over, pressing a quick, firm kiss to her lips. "Now come on. The sooner we deal with this, the sooner we can get back to our lives." The ride to Redemption Creek was tense. Clayton insisted on bringing two of his ranch hands, Tom and William, both big men who wore their guns with easy confidence. Eleanor sat in front of Clayton on his horse, his arms bracketing her, making her feel protected despite her fear. Sheriff Duncan's office was near the center of town. He looked up when they entered, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw Clayton. "Clay, wasn't expecting you today." Then he saw Eleanor, and his expression sobered. "Mrs. Hartley, I heard Whitmore's been causing trouble." "That's an understatement," Clayton said. He helped Eleanor forward, and she pulled the crumpled receipt from her pocket. "My husband paid his debt to Mr. Whitmore before he died. I have proof." Sheriff Duncan took the paper, studying it carefully. His face darkened as he read. "This is dated 3 months before your husband passed, signed and witnessed." He looked up. "If this is legitimate, Whitmore's been committing fraud." "It's legitimate," Eleanor said firmly. "James gave it to me the day he brought it home. He was so proud to have finally paid it off." "And Whitmore just kept billing you?" "He knew I couldn't afford a lawyer. He counted on me being too scared or too ignorant to fight back." The sheriff swore under his breath. "That son of a—" He caught himself. "My apologies, ma'am, but this is serious. I'll need to bring Whitmore in." "Do it," Clayton said. His hand rested on Eleanor's shoulder, steady and sure. "And Sheriff, make sure he understands that if he comes near Mrs. Hartley again, he answers to me." Sheriff Duncan's eyes moved between them, understanding dawning. "That how it is?" "That's how it is." "Good. About time you stopped rattling around that big house alone." The sheriff stood, reaching for his hat. "Give me a few hours. I'll handle Whitmore. You two should stay in town until this is settled. I don't want him trying anything." They ended up at the hotel, taking a room with 2 beds that Eleanor knew they wouldn't use. Clayton paced like a caged animal, checking the window every few minutes. "He's going to be furious," Eleanor said, watching him. "When the sheriff confronts him with the receipt, let him be furious. He'll be furious in jail." Clayton stopped pacing, turning to face her. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. Relieved? Terrified? Both?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't been there yesterday, if I'd been alone when he came." Clayton crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "But you weren't alone, and you're not going to be alone again. Not if I have anything to say about it." Eleanor buried her face in his chest. breathing in the scent of leather and soap and something uniquely him. Clayton, what are we doing? We barely know each other. This is happening so fast. Does it matter? He tilted her chin up, making her meet his eyes. I know what I feel. I know that I'd rather have one honest month with you than a lifetime of careful loneliness. The rest, we'll figure it out as we go. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me it's just gratitude or fear, and I'll back off. But if you feel even a fraction of what I feel it. Eleanor interrupted. God help me. I feel it so much it scares me. Then be scared with me. He bent his head, kissing her slow and deep, pouring everything he couldn't say into the touch of his lips against hers. They broke apart at the sound of heavy footsteps in the hall. Clayton moved in front of Eleanor instinctively, hand on his gun, but it was just Sheriff Duncan, his knock firm on the door. It's done, he said when Clayton opened up. Whitmore's in custody. Turns out he's been pulling this scheme on 3 other widows in the county. Once I had your receipt, Mrs. Hartley, they came forward with theirs. His smile was grim. He'll be going away for a long time. Eleanor sagged with relief, and Clayton's arm came around her waist, holding her steady. Thank you, Sheriff. Just doing my job. Though I'll tell you, it was satisfying to wipe that smug look off his face. Duncan tipped his hat. You two are free to go home. Or, he glanced at the single room. Whenever you're ready. After he left, Eleanor turned to Clayton, laughter bubbling up despite everything. He thinks we are, Clayton said simply. Maybe not officially yet, but we are. He pulled her close again, resting his chin on top of her head. Come home with me, Eleanor. Not as my housekeeper, as my partner, my equal, the person I want to build a life with. Clayton, that's too fast, I know. But when you've spent 3 years in the cold, and suddenly there's warmth again, you don't waste time questioning it. He drew back to look at her. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to say yes to trying, to seeing where this goes, to taking a chance on us. Eleanor studied his face, the hope and fear warring there, the raw vulnerability he was showing her. This man who'd been so closed off, so protected, opening himself up despite the risk. How could she say no to that kind of courage? Yes, she whispered. Yes to trying. Yes to us. Yes to everything. The smile that broke across Clayton's face was like sunrise, slow, then brilliant, transforming him completely. Thank God, he breathed, and kissed her again. They rode back to 3 Rivers Ranch as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Eleanor sat in front of Clayton, his arms around her, feeling more at peace than she had in years. The hands cheered when they arrived, word having spread about Whitmore's arrest. Tom clapped Clayton on the shoulder, grinning. About time you found someone to keep you honest, boss. She's going to have her work cut out for her, William added, winking at Eleanor. Eleanor blushed, but Clayton just laughed, pulling her closer. You have no idea. That night, after a celebratory dinner with the Hands, Clayton and Eleanor finally found themselves alone in his room again. So, Eleanor said, suddenly nervous. What now? Clayton sat on the edge of the bed, pulling her to stand between his knees. His hands settled on her hips, warm through the fabric of her dress. Now I spend every day proving I meant what I said, that you can trust me, that this is real. He looked up at her, expression serious. And when you're ready, when you're sure, I'll ask you properly, with a ring and everything. What if I'm sure now? His eyes widened. Eleanor, I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Clayton, I've lived through losing everything once already. I've learned that life is short and uncertain, and when you find something real, you hold on to it. She cupped his face, thumbs brushing over his cheekbones. You're real. This is real. And I don't want to waste time being careful when I could be living. Clayton stood, lifting her easily and sitting back down with her in his lap. You're sure? Because once I ask, once you say yes, I'm not letting you go. Not ever. I'm sure. Eleanor smiled, feeling light for the first time in forever. Ask me. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. Eleanor gasped. I bought it this afternoon, he admitted, sheepish, while you were talking to the sheriff. Probably presumptuous as hell, but I couldn't help myself. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band with a small diamond. Nothing ostentatious, but beautiful in its simplicity. Eleanor Hartley, Clayton said, his voice rough with emotion. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my home? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making you happy? Yes, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, yes, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he was kissing her, deep and thorough, his hands tangling in her hair. I love you, he murmured against her lips. I know I haven't said it yet, but I do. I love you so damn much. I love you too, Eleanor said, laughing and crying at the same time. Even though you're stubborn and bossy and entirely too sure of yourself, hey now, and I wouldn't change a single thing about you. Clayton grinned, that full, genuine smile she was already addicted to. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Promise. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her nose. Now and always, through everything. Together. Together, Eleanor echoed, and knew she'd finally found her home. The wedding took place 3 weeks later on the ranch, under an oak tree, with the whole valley spread out before them. It was simple. Just the ranch hands, Sheriff Duncan, and a traveling preacher who happened to be passing through. But it was perfect. Eleanor wore a new dress, pale blue cotton that Clayton had bought for her in town. He wore his best suit, looking uncomfortably formal, until she smiled at him and watched him relax. The vows were traditional, but when Clayton said, I do, he added, forever, no matter what. And when Eleanor said, I do, she added, through everything, together. No one questioned the additions. They understood. That night, in their room, now truly theirs, Clayton carried Eleanor over the threshold, despite her laughing protests. It's tradition, he insisted, setting her down gently. We're already married. We're past tradition. Never too late to start new ones. He pulled her close, swaying slightly even though there was no music. Dance with me? There's no music. So, we'll make our own. Eleanor laughed, but let him lead her in a slow circle around the room, her head resting on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Happy? He asked. Deliriously. She tilted her head back to look at him. You? More than I ever thought I'd be again. He kissed her, slow and sweet. Thank you. For what? For not giving up. For taking a chance on a broken cowboy with too much pride and too little sense. You're not broken, Eleanor said firmly. You're healing. We both are. Together, Clayton agreed and kissed her again. Outside, the wind whispered through the prairie grass. Stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. And inside the ranch house at 3 Rivers, 2 wounded souls found what they'd been searching for all along. Not perfection, not the absence of pain, but hope and healing and a love strong enough to weather any storm. 5 years later, Eleanor stood on the porch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, watching Clayton work with their 3-year-old son in the corral. Little James sat in front of his father on the horse, squealing with delight as they circled the pen. "Mama, look," he called. "I'm riding." "I see, sweetheart. You're doing so well." Clayton caught her eye and grinned. That same smile that had captured her heart 5 years ago. He'd aged well, silver threading through his dark hair now, laugh lines deepening around his eyes. He looked happy, settled, complete. The baby kicked, and Eleanor pressed her hand to the movement, smiling. "A girl this time," the doctor said. Clayton was already building a cradle, carving flowers into the wood in his spare moments. The ranch had prospered. They'd added another barn, expanded the herd, hired more hands. But more than that, the house had become a home, filled with laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of family. Eleanor thought back to that rainy night in Redemption Creek, standing on Peterson's porch with nothing but desperation and a gold ring. She'd been so certain her life was over, that survival was the best she could hope for. She'd been so wrong. Clayton rode up to the porch, lifting James down before dismounting himself. He climbed the steps and pulled Eleanor into his arms, careful of her belly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Tired?" he asked. "A little, but happy." "Good." He rested his hand over hers on her stomach, feeling their daughter move. "I love you, you know. More than I did yesterday, less than I will tomorrow." "That's my line," Eleanor protested, laughing. "Thought I'd borrow it." He kissed her properly this time, deep and thorough and full of promise. "You're staying in my bed tonight, right?" Eleanor's eyes sparkled. "I stayed in your bed last night, and the night before, and every night for the past 5 years. Good. Because I plan on you staying there for the next 50. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing over her cheekbone. "You melted my pride, Eleanor Pierce. Taught me that being strong does that I deserved more than just survival, that I could have joy again." Little James tugged on Clayton's pants. "Papa, I'm hungry." They laughed, and Clayton swung his son up into his arms. "Come on then, let's get you fed. Your mama makes the best biscuits in 3 counties. "Best in the territory," Eleanor corrected, following them inside. "Best in the world," Clayton said firmly, setting James in his chair before pulling Eleanor close for one more kiss. Just like the woman who makes them. That night, after James was tucked in bed and the house was quiet, Clayton and Eleanor lay together in their bed, the same bed where they'd spent their first night together, where they'd shared their fears and hopes and slowly built something beautiful. "I never thanked you properly," Clayton said, fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "For what?" "For being brave enough to walk through that storm. For being stubborn enough to survive. For being open enough to love again." He shifted to look at her. "You saved me, Eleanor, just as much as I saved you." "We saved each other," she corrected. "That's what partners do." "Partners," Clayton agreed. "Always." "Always," Eleanor echoed, and knew with absolute certainty that she meant it. The wind whispered across the prairie, carrying with it the promise of tomorrow. And in the house at 3 Rivers Ranch, 2 people who'd once thought themselves broken beyond repair slept peacefully, wrapped in each other's arms, their love a testament to the power of second chances. Some stories end in tragedy, some in triumph, but the best ones, the truest ones, end in healing, hope, and the quiet joy of building a life with someone who sees you, all of you, and loves you anyway. This was that kind of story, and it was far from over. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Eleanor and Clayton's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.